UI development effort and some product management stuff as well. And apart from that, as Priyanka just mentioned, I also work with the diversity and inclusion team in training and awareness campaigns for employees on how to make content accessible, like for sending emails or making PDFs and PPTs for our impaired employees as well. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us on a weekend, sparing some time. So we'll quickly start with disability and how accessibility enhances our product experiences. So you see the first slide, and I decided to take this as an opening slide because all of us in the entire session will have to keep reminding ourselves that disability is not a barrier, and this is why we are actually going through the entire product experience changes for making it accessible and inclusive in nature. So any people from Hyderabad here? People from Hyderabad?
I,
um
I
yeah.
feel that there is no one.
Okay, stay. But IKEA, I hope everyone has heard of it, right? In India, this has been a recent thing, and I think a lot of people are very fond of buying IKEA furnishings and IKEA decor stuff. They have a lot of minimal things, and I just came across this in the morning, and I thought I'll put it up front in the PPT, saying IKEA has about 422 stores in about 50 countries, and this company from Sweden, the Sweden entrepreneur, is dyslexic. And not much people know that he's one of the richest businessmen in Sweden. So, dyslexia, anybody can think of something relatable to it. I think a lot of Bollywood movies have been, Bollywood, Hollywood, a lot of people show about dyslexia. Anyone? Tare Zameen Par? So this was an entire movie around dyslexia and how it there are so many. Yeah, we have. I think you'll have to let me see if I can. Yeah, that will be better. Correct. Thank you so much. So I think in all the entire disability and the entire environment that we have created around it often makes us feel that disabled people are weaker sections of the society. But we would want to, change this entire scenario, saying that how we can improve it and how we can change the mindsets of people as well. I'll move ahead from here. Uh, what is accessibility? So ability to access. In terms of hardware, softwares, or any other products that you're developing, accessibility is to ensure that irrespective of any differences, as in like, it could be physical impairments, it could be cognitive difficulties, anything, any kinds of services, products, or environment that you build are usable by people. And if they require additional resources, like supposedly if there are people who need braille, then your product should be able to integrate with their refreshable braille, or it should be, your product should be developed such that voiceovers, talkbacks, and all of these can actually function using those assistive strategies and technologies. Moving ahead, when we talk so much around disability, so there's this one question that always comes to, what is disability? So anybody would want to give it a shot?
You can unmute yourself and
Yeah, please feel free to unmute yourself, ask questions, add anything that you might want to. So what in your perspective is disability?
Something that makes things difficult to perform some action.
Right, correct. That could be one aspect, definitely. Thank you, Suraj. Extra ability, which is different than normal. That's a wonderful way to look at it. Anyone else? So I'll move ahead from here. There are multiple theories and models that were formed around what disability is. And there are two important and popular models of disability. One is the medical model and the other is social model. So the medical model says that if I would be a person who had a fracture on my leg and I wasn't able to go up to, second floor or first floor of an apartment, that is my problem. And the medical model would suggest that I get an, amputation or I get a surgery done and fix it so that I can improve my own self. But social model of disability says that, it's a limitation that society imposes on people. Society in general, it could be because of the environment factors, or it could be because of, changes in culture or differences in culture as well. So it could be, I think a lot of design works on social model. So this is what will bring a change in what people think about disability. So we'll do a quick activity to understand more on disability. Priyanka has just posted a link on the chat. I would request all of you to open that link. If you scroll down, you can find different shapes. Please feel free to choose one of the shapes that you'd want. So the first part of the activity, we have 2 steps on the activity. The first part, when you click on the circle, it's going to start tracing. The second time you click again, it's going to stop. So just hold the circle and then drag it to trace the shape. So the second step, it's slightly tricky. When you click and when you start dragging it in the right, the cursor is going to move on the left. So let's see and trace this once again. So how was the second experience? Can we have someone sharing it? What are the timings that you took in both of them?
So I'm still figuring out how to do that. Like, it's really quite confusing. I'm making a circle.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I can share my experience. So for me, I try with circle, and in first click, it's more like you are going with the flow, and in second click, you are going against the flow.
Right.
So and I really feel it hard to control in the second, and in first, it was easy to navigate and to control.
Correct, definitely. So how much time did you take in the second one?
I think second one take a lot. It's showing 6 seconds. First one was 0.02.
Interesting. Anyone else? Any other shapes? Star or rectangles or anything else?
Yeah, I could. Sorry. I've chosen star here, and in second, I was not able to.
Sorry, we can't hear you clearly.
Sorry, am I audible?
Yeah, better now.
Yeah. Actually, I've chosen star here, and in the next step, I was not even able to decide where I have to move my cursor. Because the line is moving in the different direction my cursor is moving in, so it was really very frustrating. So.
Same here. I also
Same
chose
with
a
me.
star, and it's like 10 seconds, and in 9 seconds, I couldn't even finish it.
Exactly,
Yes.
same here.
Not even
I
a
also
single
chose
line I am
star.
able to draw.
That's good. So I think then we have the correct answers from the activity. So I think this is what is going to happen when your product is not designed for people with what they expect it to work as, right? So disability is not just an inherent quality or, a physical impairment of one particular person, but it is also designed. it's an outcome of our bad designs and, poor technological fixes. So this is one chart from Microsoft Inclusive Design Toolkit, where it says that disability is universal and dynamic. That people are not just physically permanently disabled, but there could also be temporary and situational cases. Like you might have a cataract operation that might make you having a poor vision for some days, or you might have had an accident that might, you might have additional barriers for yourself. So it could be various situations, or something like, I would say, very bright sunlight. Anything could be a barrier for people, right? So not just permanent disabilities, but there could be temporary and situational barriers as well. As the designer, we often think that, we know what our users want. And then thinking that we have a very specific target audience, we start creating our entire workflows and design around them. Sometimes we also start, thinking about these are the major functionalities that are in the what is the market offering, and these would be the USPs and everything. But we are often very specific to a target audience, saying, this is going to be 14 to something like 14 to 25 years of age, or some kinds of people. And when we do personas, we decide that these are going to be the motivations, goals, and frustrations for users. But we often forget that there is an entire section of our society that will not be using our mobile app or website as we think it's going to happen. So as a designer, we are almost excluding an entire section of the society. We're very close to that boundary, and we, as product developers or designers, we create the boundaries between, exclusion and included points. Anybody would like to add something from here? Maybe some product designers, some, managers. Thank you.
I think that's the same thing which Snapchat had did for their product. Like their target audience was from 14 to 18 age group, and they did wanted to have like people from the older age.
Correct, definitely. So in fact, if you think about Facebook or WhatsApp, so they initially started as a very youth-oriented platform for communication. But if you see WhatsApp, especially now, there are people from older ages, they use it as well. So accessibility is not only for people with, permanent disabilities, it might also help people with older ages or rural environments also, right? So if I say, WhatsApp had features like text size increase, or if Facebook had easy to do functionalities, that would make it easier for a lot of different kinds of people as well. Right? So coming to usable accessibility is what we were actually talking about. So not just accessibility as a different thing. If we see how usability and accessibility can together create a better experience for users, that will help us design inclusive products in general. So there are a lot of practices of usability and accessibility that actually have common things in general. Like if you talk about font sizes or color theories and all of that, I think instead of thinking accessibility as an additional burden, we can involve that into our experience in general for usability purposes as well. So we might think, that there are people with disabilities who do not use these tech-friendly applications or websites, but I think it's very important for them. They are, you just saw in the video that, different people use different kinds of assistive strategies and inbuilt, I would say, inbuilt Windows or Mac or iOS functionalities to help them actually use that product. And in 2011, the statistics said there were 1.3 billion people with disabilities in the world, which was almost like almost same as population of China in 2014, which is a big number, and 4 times the population of US. So if we are not thinking about these people, we are missing out on a huge number of our audiences. Why it becomes important is that it is right to internet, right? And internet is not just a source of communication, but it is also required for basic functions and basic necessities in these days, especially if you think of, the COVID situation. Now imagine as a, as a normal person, I avoid going outside. So I would prefer doing all of my work online. Either it's manage my finances or buy groceries or, send anything. But now in the same scenario, if all of these applications are not accessible, are you expecting a blind or a, handicapped person to go to the bank to do his finances or manage his finances? I think that's why we badly need our products to be accessible. Another reason I really believe is life is unpredictable. So I happened to meet this guy last week. I work on a lot of diversity and inclusion related documentation, awareness campaigns, and all. So I was sent this email from the team saying that one of the guys had worked on a documentation for making products, not just products, for making email accessible, and there were it was about a 10-page document, and I was slightly occupied with work, so I decided to just give him quick feedback. I took screenshots and I sent him back. In half an hour he called me back and he said that what you sent was very valuable, but I don't think I can see what you've sent to me. And I realized he said that he did not have vision to actually see the screenshots and understand the feedback that I had sent him, which was, I felt really guilty. I mean, I advocate accessibility and then I'm sending him across something that is not accessible. So in Infosys itself, we have about 400 people who are visually impaired, and they were not physically handicapped or impaired throughout their entire life, but sometimes some circumstance really happens. So this guy I met recently, he joined as an engineer in 2015, and because of some medical condition, he lost his vision 2 years back. Imagine a 25-year-old person who has a normal life, having a job as an engineer, loses his eyesight, right? Bhopal gas tragedy was one of the deadliest industrial disaster. And it was found that even 30 years later, there were a lot of complicated disabilities found in children who were born after that. I mean, ADHD or physical disabilities, and a lot of different complicated disabilities were found. It could also, not just for such kind of disasters, it could be a reason. I mean, it could happen for anyone, anytime. It could be a simple car accident or a medical complication, anything. So the theory of purple pound, I often, whenever I talk about accessibility, I'm often asked, especially in India, that why should we really do it? I mean, does that do a business impact? Or, I mean, what is the reason? Why should we do it? Just because it's good for people? Just because it's a social cause? What else? People usually need some additional, monetary benefit. So this is my favorite theory to put forward. All of these people in the picture, I hope all of you know, right? So Hrithik Roshan, I think a lot of people might not know that he had a lot of cognitive disabilities, and he was also suffering from a lot of spine related injuries in his early ages. Then talking about Mark Zuckerberg, he's a colorblind person. He cannot differentiate between red and green color. And that is why entire Facebook is built around blue color. So all of these people are not some weak people in the society, right? They hold a lot of power. They have a lot of money. And it is estimated that in UK, the spending power of disabled people itself is 249 billion pounds, which is a huge number. And there are a lot of statistics and reports available that show that lot of disabled people, they try to access your websites and products, and because they are not able to do it, there is a huge gap, and there is a big monetary impact as well. Laws, I think in US, UK, I mean Australia, they have pretty much very strict laws on accessibility guidelines. And if your product in terms of digital accessibility does not comply to those rules, somewhere you are discriminating with people. So it comes under discrimination category as well. It was found that in past few years the cases had risen by 177%, and there was a huge explosion of cases under web accessibility practices. And you would be surprised to know that some of your favorite brands have been sued in US for not being accessible. I'll take an example of Domino's. So there was a guy who was visually impaired and he wanted to order a pizza. But Domino's website was not accessible with keyboard. And most of the visually impaired people will not be able to use the mouse because they cannot follow the cursor. So Domino's had to pay a big amount on that. What about India? Anyone has heard of Sugamya Bharat program?
Not
Anyone?
really.
Okay. Anyone about Digital India campaign?
Yeah, heard about
Yes.
that.
I think, when TikTok was banned, a lot of people started talking about, we will create Indian products and we will make a lot of Indian digital applications for substituting that. But there's this one initiative by Indian government that was also started for disabled people. And I'll show this video. It's an advertisement for the same.
Disability is certainly not inability. If you have proper accessibilities, like a metro, and someone great has said, मेरे मन में विचार आया, क्यों न हम हमारे देश में विकलांग की जगह पर दिव्यांग शब्द का उपयोग करें। ये वो लोग हैं जिनके पास वो ऐसा एक अंग है या एक से अधिक ऐसे अंग हैं जिसमें दिव्यता है, दिव्य शक्ति का संचार है, जो हम सामान्य शरीर वालों के पास नहीं है। So I think I'll go by that.
Anyone has ever watched this advertisement by chance?
No.
I know, right? Oh, we have someone who's actually watched it.
No.
That's interesting. So, India. I mean, these are quite old statistics because I didn't find, authentic stats. These are all from the last census. 26.8 million disabled people in India in 2011, which is thrice the population of Bangalore city. And if I had to add it, Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad, 3 cities, if I include all of the population of these 3 cities, is the number of people we have in India. And in fact, it says, I mean, considering the population explosion in the past 10 years and, technical advances and all of that, it says there are about 60 million people disabled in India. I mean, imagine 10 years back, you hardly saw any people wearing glasses, right? The number was quite less. But now almost every person wears some of them wear glasses, right? Now imagine the condition of visual impairments that have come into this country. India, they started this Accessible India campaign, Sugamya Bharat Abhiyan, under Persons with Disability Act that was brought in 2016, in which the government decided to bring 3 types of accessibility. First one for environment, any kind of physical spaces, like especially for government buildings, they would create ramps and whatever was required for people to travel, navigate, especially for wheelchairs, transportation system, and ICT, so information and communication. Although under this, only government websites are currently taken care of, and there is an entire, I think, entire is going on around how to make all government websites like IRCTC or NCRT, all of these, how to make that accessible for people. So if there are people working in government agencies or people working with companies that have government projects, I think it's a very important thing for you to consider. Apart from that, if let's forget about laws, if I had to say, in the past few months with COVID and e-learning and everything getting digital, every day you will read a lot of news articles talking about accessibility, e-learning practices. Now imagine the students who were using Braille, or people who were physically handicapped, right? And now how are they going to access e-learning content, especially for people who are visually impaired, right? So I think there are a lot of opportunities for us as product designers and as innovation practices. So we have a lot of opportunities in here, especially a lot of rules and laws are also changing. So I got some clipping from saying colorblind people can now become doctors in India. That is a huge thing to happen. I mean, imagine that's slightly scary to think, but I mean, laws are changing in India as well, and we have a lot of scope to design products that are accessible and to also involve accessibility practices in existing products. You can read this article. I can share some of the links saying, Disney Hotstar accessible to us for IPL 2020, demanded visually challenged cricket fans. So I'll move ahead from here to design considerations. Anyone would want to add anything specific here? So I would like to ask, as designers, what are the major considerations you would want, you take when you're doing your UI or UX? For visual design as well, and any kind of visual design, color, text. Wow, that's interesting. So Robin's saying WCAG.
So I would like to add my point here. I'm working on my project, and the target user is more than 80 plus, like 70 or 80 plus. So yeah, so we are considering 2.2 parameters here. We will not use more color as it is difficult for the user to understand. We will use single color tone, and the button width will be large enough to accessible. These are the first two measures, a major parameter which we are using. Now, I would like to ask you, like, what are the other parameters we can use in our application?
Sure. Thank you, Tejas. Thanks a lot. So we have some people saying keyboard accessibility, color contrast ratios, minimum text size, color tones. Yeah, I think all of them are great examples for accessibility. We'll start with something very basic, which is color contrast. I think there are a lot of different kinds of color contrast and analyzers, and a lot of different kinds of tools as well. Some of my favorite are, WebAIM, and I think a lot of plugins have also come up for Figma, XD, Sketch, etc. I'll quickly share for people who have not who are not very familiar with it. So there are a lot of plugins, especially Stark, you can check. And if you select your particular text, it would show you the contrast ratio that matches with the background or not. So there is something called as under WCAG level A, level AA, and level AAA. So A is the basic level that is mandatory for all designs and all accessibility practices. Double A is recommended, and triple A is something that would be very specialized and extremely good to have. So in terms of color contrast, I think this is something very simple and very easy to do that most of us can actually incorporate in our designs. If I take it an example of physical space, so A would be something to have a generic ramp, maybe a concrete ramp, anything that you might have at your home as well. A double A would be a smooth ramp, a well-to-do, a well good, steep, and everything, good material. And triple A could be a travelator, something like, automatic, something like that, right? So it's a very specialized thing. Then you can see the ratios and the difference that it makes in creating designs. So these are something that we can quickly do. And there are a lot of online tools as well to analyze this. Color blindness is one very important factor that comes when we're designing the visuals. Can we have one person, one volunteer here? We can do a quick activity.
Yes.
Oh, so who do we have? Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, myself Part Teller, and I am recently starting my career as a UI UX designer in a small scale industry. Yeah, actually, yes.
So
Yeah,
what
please.
we do, this is a very quick activity, and what you
Yes.
have to do is whatever color you see, you have to just pick that color up. Okay.
Okay.
I'll run this experiment for you. Can you read out the colors for us, left to right?
Yeah. Yeah. Red, green, blue, yellow, pink, orange, blue, green, blue, white, green, yellow, orange, blue, white, brown, red, blue, yellow, green, pink, yellow, green, blue, and red.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So now remember, you have to read the colors.
Garva, can you unmute
Yeah,
yourself?
please.
Yeah, Parth.
Yes.
Can you read out the
Red.
colors?
Yes, sure. Red.
Colors. Remember, you have to read the color.
Yes. Red.
Not the word, the color.
Okay. Green, yellow, white, pink, orange, blue, red, yellow, green, blue, red, blue, green, red, pink, blue, yellow, pink, green, orange, red, blue, orange, red, and green.
Thank you so much, Parth. So how was the second time? It took me almost 70 seconds.
Correct.
So, as we saw, then if you do a colorblind simulation, so a normal vision will see this as blue and green, and someone with protanopia will also be able to differentiate between the two colors. But a person with tritanopia will see them as same colors. Now, if I try to tell the user that color 1 is 2018 report and color 2 is 2019 report, This does not make sense to them, right? Because they see both of them as same colors. The same is here in this dashboard. So you see, you can't identify two different colors, right? Now, if I go to the original vision, original artboard, they were supposed to be two different colors. So in the third section, even if someone might not be able to distinguish between total and completed, they can at least relate to some logic here, right? That the first one is total, second is to do, third is completed, and fourth is on hold. Does that make sense? Am I clear on this?
Yeah. And is this something, some tool or something that you are using to check
Yeah.
the?
So these are, this is an XD plugin called as Stark, and Stark is also available for Figma and Sketch.
Okay. Yeah, that is helpful.
And Stark has options to do a colorblind simulation and color contrast as well. So color dependency, avoid problematic color combinations. These are some of the color combinations that people generally have difficulty with identification. So if you tell someone that red is a no and green is a yes, that might not make very sense. So don't rely on on color to convey a message, information, or action also. So I think sometimes what we do is, if there's a clickable item, just don't make the color different. Also underline it, or maybe make it semi-bold, bold, or something different that shows that it is clickable and there is an action involved with it. Apart from that, you can also add additional icons or patterns with it, text labels, so that it's identifiable. When it comes to color, yellow is a very dangerous color for people with autistic spectrum, and it could be very difficult and distressing for those people that it might give them a sensory overload. Avoid using yellow, especially the brightest lemon yellow. Never use it for a very big screen or as a background, or as a lot of information is there. Take care with animations and flashing. Restrict the flashing to some seconds. So anything that flashes under rate of 3 times a second is very difficult for some people, and it might even give them epileptic seizures, or create some motion sickness in some people. So try to have animations that are smooth and where there is not too much of flickering or some kinds of flashing content. When it comes to text, I think, in terms of usability itself, text is a very important factor. So use a text that is easy to read, especially if possible. Don't use a text that is lesser than 14 or 16 pixels. Google and Material Guidelines and iOS, both of them, they have their accessibility criteria, and they have a set guidelines on this as well. So you can check information if you are building it for some specific platforms. Avoid lightweight text. I think this is one very trending thing to happen, that people, they end up using very thin text, but that's very difficult to read actually. In fact, sometimes when the resolution changes and the development has not happened in a good way, you might also have some pixelated text images, and lightweight text will not be readable at all. Line length, again, some usability principles. Don't make a very longer length, because it's very difficult for the user to go till the end and then come back and travel across the entire screen. This is very important for screen reader users, because for screen readers it has some character limitations, after which it will take some breaks. So, and the tempo is also different for screen reader users. So try to use a minimum of 50 to 60 characters on desktop and 30 to 40 for mobile. 3-step recovery process. I think a lot of us must have faced this. I think I was filling off this form once on my phone. I think even Google Forms that has a big problem with this. When you're trying to, send the form or submit the form, there might be some error on the top of the field. I mean, on the top of the form, and they might not tell you where it is exactly. So it's very important that when you're doing an error, the user should be able to find where is the error, what is the error, and how to fix it. Now, if you just say that there is an error, user might not be able to understand. Especially that's fine for people who can see. But what if people, they cannot see, they cannot navigate to where it is? I mean, we can't expect someone who can't see to navigate through the entire form and find where is that red colored button, right? The focus should move there, and there should be clear indication of what is the error and how to fix it. Scalability. So there was someone who was talking about they're building a product for 80 years old, right? Are you considering something like scalability and Zoom text?
Not yet.
I'll quickly give you a. Let me know if you can see my screen now.
Yeah.
Are you able to view my screen?
Yeah, I can hear.
So this is the screen number 1. I think it looks usual, and this is how we usually build it. So when someone who's using a text increaser, there are sometimes, there are inbuilt features which allows the user to increase the size of the text. And when you do that, it might end up looking like this one. Let me know if you can still see my screen.
Yes, yes.
Is this visible?
Yes.
Right. So the text that was supposed to be fitting until here, the text was increased, and now it has overlapped with the action items. So sometimes things like these happen, which we did not consider in general, but this might happen with people who are using a lot of inbuilt features, especially. In fact, not to go too far, I wear glasses. Sometimes when I'm not wearing my glasses, or when I'm just, relaxing without my glasses, I often put my phone on a zoom mode. A lot of your parents might be using zoom mode as well. So things like dial pad, keypad, things like those, they become larger in font. And I have seen this with keypads. The number goes out of the button, or you might only see half of the number. You should try this in Android especially. I have seen this happening in Google Pay. When you're putting the UPI ID, and if you have a larger font size, then you will only see, I think, 70 or 80% of the number. So to make sure this does not happen, we have to deliver correct guidelines to the developers with handoffs. While designing with the grids, you will have to make sure that the developers know that the first text has to be only till 5 grids, and the second part of the text has to be till 3 grids. Or this one, if you see, this text has to be some pixels away from the icon. Now what the developer will do, that whoever increases the font size, they will make sure that after this, the font does not go in the same line. It will get truncated. So something like you'll see in the navigation also. Now, if I increase the font size even more, all of these texts are going to get merged or collapsed into each other, right?
Yes.
So we might have to give these indications to developers to make sure that our design is scalable enough and that can be used by people when they increase their font sizes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very nice suggestion. I will definitely work on it. Thank you so much.
So I'll end up my presentation with a short video again from Apple. I hope all of you can see my screen.
Yes, Karan.
Yes.
This is the station to rock you, shock you, move you, and groove you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. My name is Patrick Lafayette. Don't you ever forget, it's Chris Mix Radio. Patrick with you. To do something for yourself
Voiceover on Logic Pro X.
is one of the greatest things you could ever do.
Record. Menu 10 items. Count in. Submenu. Metronome setting. Check mark. Allow quick punch and check mark.
Now, I can express myself.
Camera. Picture 2 in progress. Picture 1 is citrus printed plastic bottle.
It's a big thing when you're a father and you want to participate.
Picture 3 is garlic powder. Picture 3 is person holding white onions.
What's up, baby? Not just make food, but make excellent food. Where I see my wife take her shoes off and say, "Give me some more." And my kids lick their chops and say, "Daddy, that was great." I have so much that I've always wanted to express. I'm like a volcano. I'm like Pele or Mount Etna.
Are the track for recording?
I'm about ready to erupt.
So there are many such considerations that you can still do, like having, like gestures, especially. If you have gestures and some functionalities can only work with gestures, there might be people who would not have hands. There might be people who might have tremors, or, there might be older age people who would not even know what a gesture is. So there are such kinds of considerations that you might have to think about when you're designing the product or when you're having your action items. I'll also show a small demo. Let me share my screen. So there are a lot of auto testing tools as well that you can use for, analyzing. Okay, I'll do a Drupal test. If you put the URL here, you'll get a report generated about what kind of issues are available in the website. So you will see there are some UI development related errors and then some contrast errors as well. Something like this button, they have a very small contrast ratio here, right? So you can use these kinds of tools as well for doing.
Okay, Garima, there's a question. Where do we read more about accessibility and follow the rules and try to design inclusive?
W3C is the official organization that looks into, let me share my screen, into accessibility criteria, and you can read more about through WAI initiative, and you'll find guidelines about mobile, web, or general practices as well. So W3C has the WCAG, which is Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, 1.1, sorry, WCAG 1, 2.0 and 2.1. So you can, I think, follow 2.0 and 2.1, any of them, and you'll be able to get through it. Let me share my screen again. W3C, WAI, you can check here, and then you'll get whatever resources you require for content writers, designers, developers, testers, as per your job role and as you require.
Specific to anything, but if at all there are many, we are developing a product for which the target customers are first-time app users or mobile smartphone users. So should we consider any accessibility features mandatory for this product, or like generally points? We not go into details, but these are the list of features that need to be mandatory for first-time users or something like that.
I think what you can do is you can do a diverse persona kind of thing when you do doing the entire persona and user understanding, I always suggest have at least one persona that would say maybe having some visual impairment, so that even if you're not specifically doing it for them, but you can at least understand some basic frustration that they might have, and then you can try to solve that particular problem. Or at least you can do color contrast and text sizes correctly, so that there is no gap especially for them.
Okay, yeah. Sure, thanks.
So do we have more questions? Okay. Okay. Shivam, would you like to speak out your question?
So you're referring to me, right, Sumesh?
Okay. Yeah,
Oh,
Sumesh.
yeah.
Yeah, please,
So my
Sumesh, you please go ahead.
yeah. So yeah, my question is more regarding the kiosk, because I have seen a lot of kiosks like the airport kiosk and even the train kiosk, and where they have the accessibility, and sometimes they have issues regarding the UX, and it's very hard to define, where you insert your money to get a ticket, or where you insert a card, and how to insert the passport. So do you ever like uh, go through those scenarios, or do you have some suggestion there to keep in mind when you are developing and building a kiosk specifically?
That's very interesting question. I have actually never seen guidelines or anything specific to that, but I would say there are a lot of technologies coming up in terms of haptic touches, or there are a lot of screens that are also being built for braille users. So I think that should solve the problem. I mean, I don't know if technologically that would be you know possible for doing it for all the chaos, because that might take a lot of effort and finances as well, but I think that should be considered definitely. Or else I think I was reading about ATMs, and even our keyboards, they have some point of reference from where the user can understand that where the other keys might fall, right? So something like that could be done. I think on the keyboard, you might find one or two areas where they'll have a, what do we say, emboss or some kind of impression.
Thank you.
Thanks, Umesh. Comes to startups, the first thing is, making your stakeholders and product owners at least aware of what accessibility is. Because only if they agree, you will be able to bring that up, right?
Right.
You will have to figure it out that what are some small tricks that will help accessibility be taken care in your product, and that will not require much effort in development as well as financial also.
Okay.
I speak to a lot of people when they are into product, especially in India, and every time they have this thing in mind that why should we do it? It would require additional effort for us. So this would be my take on this.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think apart from that as well, if you see the trends, right? I just brought a lot of new things also. Keep in mind that as of now, we only have requirements for government websites, but there might be a case, a lot of lawsuits and PILs are actually filed in the court. And I wish and I hope that we are able to win some of them, so that these rules might also be, forcefully put upon private organizations also.